All right, welcome to our discussion on education in our state of Essex County 2012. And I'm going to make it easy on myself and ask each of our guests to introduce themselves and talk about what they do and where they do it. So Joann, let's start.
My name is Joann Joseph, and I'm with Newark Preschool Council, and I'm an education coordinator, which means that I'm a curriculum specialist, and I deal with teachers and curriculum.
Ed?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ed Hughes. I'm the Vice President for Student Development and Campus Life at Berkeley College. We have 8 campuses, including an online campus and 4 campuses in New Jersey. We are obviously at the Newark campus at the moment. Total enrollment is roughly 7,700 students. My responsibilities are for all programs and activities, co-curricular, extracurricular, and athletics that take place outside the classroom or in collaboration with the faculty.
My name is Bickram Singh. I'm from the Vocational Schools. My title is Supervisor of Program Accountability. We have 4 high schools in the county, one in West Carlisle, 2 in Newark, and 1 in Bloomfield. And total enrollment is 28. My job is actually to monitor and implement instructional programs and make sure that the state funds and federal funds are used for the intended purpose, to make sure that we have positive outcomes as a result of investment of these funds, and make sure the programs are actually monitored tightly.
Great. I think to play off that last discussion a little bit, we talked about the economy, the impact of the economy. How is that changing education? We heard how workers have to retool, and I guess Berkeley College would be a perfect example really of how it's really set up to help people retrain and retool. Have the students changed at Berkeley College, the student population that you see?
We have traditionally been a very diverse school in terms of our student population. Globally, or nationally, I should say, the economy has impacted everything in education, from how endowments of large universities are doing to the students' ability to actually attend college.
Right.
So there has been that type of impact, and I'm sure you might have spoken about that to some extent earlier. I think from a college's standpoint, higher education standpoint, really the key is what you do about that. And the way we have reacted is we have increased our institutional aid. Last year it ran roughly $40 million. And we also continue to put an awful lot of focus on students achieving a career of their choice. And the last statistic that I've heard is we're at students who graduated roughly within the last 6 months or so, 87% of them have achieved jobs. And if you look at some recent studies where there's an indication that roughly half of the college graduates over the last several years are either underemployed or employed, we feel like we're doing very well. Another service we offer also is lifetime career services assistance. So if you graduated from Berkeley 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, you can come back to the school and we will in fact assist you in the process of achieving employment.
And Bickram, your students are really moving out of high school into
The colleges, yes, and or a career of their choice. And we've been very successful so far. When you look at the trend, over 80% of our kids go on to the institution of higher learning. We have a very robust vocational program that really gives them the skills to get employment. Unfortunately, because of the economy, we don't have as many right now, but we have the structure in place because we do have partnerships with outside stakeholders who actually employ our kids during their senior year and give master evaluation. In terms of preparation for college, we have actually continuously improved our program. So the first time this year we offered AP classes, and after all these years in our district, and we hope to expand it
The traditional view of VOTech schools has really changed quite a bit.
Yes, and actually it's a stereotype, it's a myth actually, because people feel that when kids come to the VOTech school, they really can't perform well academically. And we don't actually compromise in our academic program. We have two programs and we try to make sure that they're intertwined and not run two programs separately within the school district. And so, there's always talk about authentic learning and the transfer of knowledge. And these kids have a great opportunity to transfer their learning in academic classrooms into the CTE programs. And they're doing very, very well.
Is there something about the way you teach or your style of education that perhaps these students are doing better, they're excelling in a setting like yours where perhaps they didn't in a traditional classroom?
Yes. Most of the time, as you know, the learning is done by the learner. Who does the work actually learns. So we try to focus the attention on the learner and not the teaching. We focus on learning. So we want to make sure that students have the experience, hands-on experience, to actually do the learning. And then, like I said, they transfer what they will do, let's say in a physics class or a math class, into a CTE program, like in the electronics program or web design or welding and so on, in carpentry.
So what do you think what is it about VOTech, your training, that perhaps makes it easier for these kids to learn where you are? Would perhaps, as I said, they might have had difficulties in a traditional high school environment?
Yes, look, it's very, very challenging. We actually are a school of choice. The kids apply to come to our district, but it doesn't mean we have the luxury of actually choosing the top kids.
Right.
70% of our kids actually perform below grade level when we give them an entrance test. It's a turnover that actually determines their grade of performance. And from that point, we start to think about structures in place to support them. For example, before they enroll in our schools, we give them a 4-week enrichment program in the summer.
Okay.
That's for transitioning into high school. Give them the skills that they may not have. And then when they come into the schools, we have a very comprehensive assessment program. I think the key is to identify the needs of these students very early and address those needs. And don't wait for, let's say, a mark period to end and say, okay, you're failed. We try to capture it before. So we have structures in place where the kids will be assessed continuously. And actually I do much of that. We give them an assessment. I aggregate the data by subgroups required by NCLB. And then, but beyond that, we go deeper to individuals, because the whole thing about success of schools is about the individual. And we focus on the learner as an individual, because as you know, success to a parent is about the success of that child, not the entire school necessarily.
Exactly.
Tell me about my child.
Yes, tell me how my kid's doing.
Yes, exactly. So what we do, I provide the data to the teachers to give technical support. So here the performance of your kids, and we need to focus on X, Y, Z, the kids. And then they also have the tools to do item analysis. So know exactly what skills these kids need help in at the personal level.
Right.
And so with that structure in place, we address the skills of the individual learner. Now you will say, well, how do we do this within 80 minutes? Because every block is 80 minutes.
Yeah.
So what we do, we look at the classes where we can borrow time from. For example, a student may have 2 hours of a CTE class. So say, can we borrow, let's say, 40 minutes from that? And then we give them extra support in math and language arts.
That one student.
That one student. Or actually, it comes down to maybe 3 or 4 normally.
But it sounds like it requires a lot of flexibility
Oh,
from your
yes.
staff
Yes.
and
Yes.
from your administration, from you.
Yes.
It's like to say, this is working, this isn't working.
Exactly, because I want to know, well, I monitor these kids. Is this program working? Because there's no sense running a program without knowing whether it's working or not, right? You pour money into the program, and it's really conversion of money. You convert money into some success story. So apart from the borrowing that time, we have the after-school program, and then we also have before school. So we have, additional learning time. In fact, in one school, we added an hour in their West College campus for the first time this year into the school day. So it's not like an add-on.
Yeah, you can do that. It just,
If it's acceptable by the association, and we negotiate for for many, many months to make sure that this thing,
Yeah.
goes fine.
So really, your philosophy is that every student is going to succeed.
Exactly. You have to believe that every student will succeed. And we ask the teachers, look, do you accept responsibility for the success of your students? And everybody says, yes, sure. Right? But do you also accept responsibility for the failure of your students? I mean, it has to be yes. So in other words, you have to make sure everybody's accountable for their own students. And when I do those disaggregation with data, the whole process becomes very transparent. In other words, we know what's happening within that classroom, and the data speaks to us. And it's not a snapshot, it's a trend. So I look at trends, like I've been doing this for 10 years now. So I can identify teachers who are very good with certain skills. And so we do that match. Say, because you've been very good in helping these underperforming kids. Some teachers may be very good in teaching the high-performing kids. And so we make that match also.
How many kids in each of your classes? What's your average class size?
It depends on the school. For example, at Newark Tech, we'll be able to 24 to 28.
So really a large class.
Yes, and that's why in these after-school classes, we don't want it to run as if it's an additional class. We say, look, we need small class size, we need more one-to-one kind of a teaching and learning so that we can address the individual needs.
Well, Joann, not to leave you out here, but the most important part of all this, obviously, is the foundation that kids have for going to school, which is where you come in. Tell us about your population and what you do to prepare your kids.
Well, first let me say that it's so heartening to hear about the work that you're doing, because it sounds like preschool. And I say that as a very high compliment. Because the focus is the learner. And if a child is not asked to fit the school is asked to fit the child, which is the way it should be. Newark Preschool Council is a Head Start agency. We educate over 1,500 children in our own schools. We have about 15 children per class with 2 teachers. And now I have forgotten your question.
Where are most of your kids? What's the
Our population, we have 90% of our children meet the poverty guidelines. We are allowed to have 10% of our children over that poverty level. And of course, they all come from Newark. They must be Newark residents. They are children of immigrants. They're American children, of course. And we have many, many languages in our centers. Some centers have many languages within one classroom. We are a birth to 5 agency. We have Early Head Start and we have Head Start. Early Head Start is 0 to 3. Once a child reaches 3, then they go into the Head Start. So during the Early Head Start phase, there are far fewer slots for Early Head Start. Early Head Start really throughout the country only educates, it only serves 4% of all eligible children.
Is that because of lack of funds?
Yes. And lack of funds allocated. And
Okay.
so,
Way to look at that, yeah.
right. So
And it's all federal funding?
it's all federal funding. And our Head Start classrooms are partial. Head Start, which is federal, and state
Okay.
and city. So it's a real soup.
Yeah.
But Early Head Start is all federal. And so we have a chance to work with parents very heavily in those Early Head Start years and help them be good parents in terms of what they do with their children at home. A lot of parent engagement, heavily on parent engagement. And we try to do that, of course, once the children reach preschool age. And as the children get older, it's not a heavy involvement with the parents because there aren't the resources, of course, for once you get into Head Start. There are many, many resources for having parent engagement. It's not, the structure is not the same as early Head Start.
And it's not just education of the child, you're working with their health as well? With the whole
Health
child?
is very, I mean, that's the first. So our health department makes sure the child is completely immunized. And they have a medical home, they have a dental home, and these are very, very important issues too, because a child cannot learn unless that health piece is in place. Once the child gets to school, we involve parents, and we have a journal that goes home, comes back, goes home, comes back, in which we have a dialogue. Each teacher has a dialogue with the parent on a weekly basis, what the child did at home, suggestions for working at home, and then the parent writes something or the child writes something in the journal. So we try to keep that because educating the parent is just as important as educating the child.
Do you find that you get responsiveness from the parents? Are they engaged?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Parents, they love to be engaged with their children. I mean, they welcome it. And, you know, there are stories. We had this one mother who was she didn't want to hear about, I'm not going to read to my child. I'm not going to read to my child. And they sent her home with a book on tape and a tape. And she came back and said, it was the first time I ever read a book to my child because I cannot read. So you realize when you're working with parents where they need help too.
Right.
And that's the beauty of Head Start. And because Head Start allows you, well, it doesn't allow you, it asks you, it's part of the performance standards, to work with the parent. And so that, of course, you're working with adult learners at that point, you know, because it's not only the child, and we're very good at that, and it's also working with a parent who at that point is an adult learner. They're learning how to be a parent, how to be the parent of a good student.
So you mentioned that only 4% of the eligible population is served. Is that nationally?
Nationally, I'm talking nationally.
What about the Head Start population here in Essex County? Are you reaching everyone that you could, or is it the question of what?
Well, we're not the only Head Start agency in Essex County, so I really don't have those numbers. But we are a Head Start agency, and we serve in our classes 1,500 children. We serve another. We have collaborations with other centers, and that's about another 800 children. So there are other Head Start agencies. But in New Jersey, we have the Abbott program. And the Abbott program, or formerly known as Abbott, in which children have free preschool from the age of 3. If they're 3 by October 1st, they could go into a 3-year-old class. If they're 4 by October 1st, they go into a 4-year class. So they have 2 years of very high quality instruction. And right now it is, I believe that they are looking at the second graders who have been through the Abbott program and the Head Start program, and they are seeing a rise in the scores of the second graders. And it's directly attributable to the early education of children.
So when your kids graduate from Head Start, they're 5?
They're 5, they go into kindergarten.
And you feel pretty confident that they're well prepared then?
Well, we do the same thing that you do. We have data, we aggregate our data. Our children are assessed basically on a daily basis, and the assessment is it's an informal assessment where a teacher will see what a child does and will write it down. And we have a system where we look at what the child has done to see where it fits on a continuum. So the child will be at, let's say, and there are 7 levels, and so maybe a child comes to us at a level 3, and by January they might be doing level 4, in one area, and it's around 50 different areas. We look at the way a child interacts with their peers, the way a child interacts with adults, the way a child plays by him or herself. We look at the way a child is able to calm themselves.
A lot of social skills as well.
A lot of social skills. And then you have the educational skills. You also have what is their approach to learning, which is a very important one. Because it's not enough to just know skills. It's, knowledge is good, understanding is better.
It's how you think as well as what you think.
Right. And so there's a whole, section, in the assessment there's a section, but there's also a great belief that children need to learn how to think. It's not just good enough to get the skills, the ABC skills and the triangle, circle, and the color, which are important, and I don't want to denigrate that. However, you have to know how to think about the things that you know.
I guess, one of the questions I'd like to jump into for all of us here is the big picture question of how are we doing in New Jersey, and especially in Essex County in education. But one of the things that we've seen is we've gone across the state and we've looked at the remediation numbers, and you must see this, that almost a third of students who enter a freshman class in college need remediation, and I think for community colleges it's even almost a 40% figure. So what are we doing wrong in our schools that we've got to do these remediation courses at such a huge level when our kids get into college? What would you?
It's, rather than focus on what others are doing wrong, I'd prefer to talk about what I think we're doing right. In terms of what we do at Berkeley, there's several things we do. We have Project Jumpstart, which is a voluntary program where students who need this type of remediation would actually attend classes in the summer for the fall quarter.
Just as you do with you do your kids in the summer, in a summer enrichment class. So
exactly. So that's one example. Another example is, and that particular program has been going on for some time. Another example is the Bridge to Success program. And if students are not able to get a certain score in an entrance exam, we actually have created a program where for 5 weeks they can attend classes for 15 hours a week, concentration on math, study skills, time management, and if they pass that, then they can matriculate as a full-time student. We've just started that program, and it's been very successful. Most of the students in there have actually passed.
So do you find that it's a question of students not having the skill set, as Joann said, that they just don't know how to put the right pegs in the right holes? Or is it a question of knowing how to think and how to really learn?
In the case of the Bridge program, it has to do with math skills, and we found that the focus on the math skills is very important, which really brings to your point about analytical thinking and how to think. So that is an example of it.
And what's your take on this?
Well, let me tell you about our schools first. There's only one way New Jersey assesses high schools, and that's mastery of skills with standards in math and language arts based on an HSBA exam. Right?
And that's taken when you're junior?
Junior. But you bank the scores if you score partial proficient, and you get 2 more chances.
Okay.
I'll tell you where we are right now. The goal for NCLB was to have 100% proficiency by the year 2014. Bloomfield Tech. Yes. Yeah, but right now we operate under a waiver system because of the state's application. Bloomfield is one of our Blue Ribbon schools. Right? Also Title I distinguished school. For the past 5 years, 100% of those kids were proficient in language arts.
Wow.
Right now, I think it's now 94% in mathematics.
And that's
very consistent.
I mean, almost any school district in the state, no matter where they are, would be thrilled, right, to have
Exactly,
100%
by
efficiency.
any standards.
Yeah.
Now, these are schools with we're running a school-wide program, which means that the poverty rate is threshold is 35%, right? So, I mean, 86% of the kids are getting to a reduced lunch. At Newark Tech, for like 4 years, the school is failing, and they've made it that goal for the past 6 years. Right now, they're at 99% in language arts, and I think it's 88% in mathematics.
Wow.
We have at North 13th Street, 99% language arts, and they have 86%. And then the biggest, most significant achievement for us for the past couple of years is our West Caldwell Tech campus. Originally, the school was designed to serve special needs kids, but there are no rules just for special needs kids. They come and they're being held accountable for using the same standard, taking the same test, right? But they give them some accommodations in terms of time. Well, for about 7 years, we used to have 9%, 0% passing, and probably that was expected because we're special needs kids. And for the past 3 years, we invested time and effort. We've been there almost on a daily basis. And for the past 4 years, we've made the benchmark. Right now, it's 97% mathematics, language arts. I think it's 87% mathematics. But here talking about over 55% of the kids with special needs, unheard of. In fact, this year, they were granted the Blue Ribbon status. All right, that's a nice picture about progress using NCLB and the state assessment. Let's come back now to the question about these kids struggling in college. You're right. Most of the kids who take an entrance exam, it's really an entrance test to determine a grade level of performance, not really a pass-fail, but to determine that they need remediation. So what we have done, we have partnered with Essex County College. So look, we want to help our students, all right? So give us the curriculum, right? It's called Math 086. It's a developmental course. And we will teach the kids using our own teachers, right? So what we do now, instead of removing the curriculum totally, the mathematics curriculum, because we don't want to sacrifice rigor, right? Because this test is actually decimals, percent, and fractions, without the use of a calculator.
Most of us
exactly, and that's the big problem, because the kids are accustomed to use a calculator. Right? They don't have a deep understanding of fractions and decimals and what it really means. So we teach our kids in the schools, all right, this same course. Essex County College will give us a midterm and final exam, and if the kids get 7% or more, they get 4.5 credits, right? It's
great.
Yes, but it's not. It's not really undergraduate credit, but it's actually college credit.
Yeah.
And if they were to proceed and attend Essex County College, they don't have to repeat these courses. So they'll save financial aid, save time, and so on, and even textbooks. Right. If they manage to pass 086, they go to 092, which is the next course. And then the third course will be an undergraduate course, Math 100. Right now, we have kids in Newark Tech doing the Math 100. And even beyond that, we partner with County College to do 2 engineering courses, partner with CT. So we're addressing that need within the school. And at one time, we are also partnered with PSE&G, where they paid a professor at the college. They bus the kids to the college, and then they take the test, the course, and pass the test.
So this is all really optimistic. And essentially what you've all seen is that there's really no student who can't learn.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And if I can add one thing, my fellow panelists have been using words like community, collaboration, hands-on, experiential learning. That is so critical. I mean, to have parents involved in the process, to have that kind of support system, it should carry through the entire education process. A very important part of our philosophy is that students have an internship. Every student who graduates from Berkeley College, before they graduate, has an internship in their major, a field related to their major. But that kind of hands-on learning has got to really start at a very early age. And it sounds like in your cases, it certainly does.
Yeah, but we're under a lot of pressure too, because like I said, the school is rated on performance on the HSPA.
Right.
So all resources are geared toward preparing these
Teaching to
kids.
the test.
Well, we don't like to say that. We want them to master standards that the test will.
And I've never really understood, I mean, I understand you don't want people to just know, the skills that you mentioned. You can't just know what's on the test. I
Right,
think you
right.
have an education. But at the same time, you have to know the things that are on the test.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Not just to meet the standards, but because that's really the basis of your education.
yes, yeah. And, well, New Jersey is the only state, I think, one of the very few states that don't release, test items. There's some change coming up because of these common assessments and model curriculum and all that.
Actually, there are a lot of changes being made now in the New Jersey education system,
Yes.
which you're probably more directly involved in as a high school, right? Anybody else? And do you think these changes, where we're really moving away almost from, say, from county superintendents, for example, we're moving the structure, I guess now we're going to be focusing on, what's the term they're going to be using, risk schools or risk?
They have priority schools.
Priority
The
schools,
bottom 25%, the lowest performing 5%, I'm saying that wrong. 5% of the lowest performing schools
Okay.
are termed priority schools.
Right.
Those are what have been identified.
Which, would those previously have been Abbott districts? Are we changing that?
Not necessarily.
No.
They can be anywhere in the state.
Okay.
Right? And then you have the next 10% are called focus schools. And then you have high performing reward schools and high progress reward schools. Those are okay. I mean, they're doing well. Exactly. But priority schools have certain, I don't want to say sanctions, but they will do certain things. For example, right now, they have to implement a model curriculum designed by the state and administer common assessments set up by the state using a timeline. That's not negotiable.
Okay.
Right? I mean, just get schools to assess kids, know their weaknesses, address their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, we've been doing that without the state telling us. And the
Some
focus
schools have them, we assume, because.
I wouldn't say.
Well, we can assume that, but if the state's not going to mandate it, they haven't before, clearly.
Yes.
Because they feel there's a need for more state
Right.
intervention.
And they set up what they call RACs, Regional Achievement Centers. There's a team of people, consists of specialists who will help the schools. You have a math specialist in language arts, culture and climate specialists, and so on.
Okay.
The resources are also available to the focus schools, but right now the attention would be on these priority schools to get them out of that rut of
Yeah.
underperforming.
Isn't there also a big focus from this commissioner on lowering the achievement gap, he calls it, where in some districts you can have very high-performing students and a number of students who really aren't performing well in the same district?
Exactly. I mean, and that's one good thing I like about NCLB, because it focuses you on all these little subgroups. See, if you have one test and 90% are proficient, it's great.
Yeah.
But you may find there are about 15 special needs kids who are all partial proficient, and that would be ignored because we wouldn't look at it. So when you look at the special needs population, ESL, blacks, whites, Asians, and you look at the subgroups, then you get a good picture of the performance of the schools, rather than just,
So are we optimistic that these changes are going to have an impact on students and how we learn in New Jersey?
Yes, and to me, it has to do with commitment. I always tell our teachers, this is not a transactional profession. You don't put in 8 hours and get 8 hours pay. You put in many, many hours,
Yeah.
and your pay is the one you negotiated at the time of employment.
Right.
So don't think, it's 4 o'clock, it's time to go home, I'm done. Right? In my case, it's almost like a 24/7 job for me. Right? With commitment. And it's a perception. The kids know. The kids don't have to get involved in negotiation on this. They know he really cares for them. I tell teachers all the time, you don't have to tell kids you love them. In 2 weeks, they'll tell you that. They will know, right, whether you care for them or not. So once there's a level of commitment, and if the state is going to push us in this direction, I think, we will.
Well, that's, and one of the big questions that we're looking at too is, the question of what makes a good teacher evaluation. We're going to be seeing teacher evaluations for the first time in New Jersey.
Yes, we'll be implementing next year, where 50% will be teacher input and 50% output. 50% input meaning it will be based on the evaluation. And they've already, and this is negotiable with the local associations. In our case, we've decided to put 35% on the observation itself. And then there's a 15% on teacher, maybe professional development. That's totally in control by the teacher.
Right.
The output now will be, well, what are we getting out? Are these kids learning based on some assessment? And we've said 35% is student achievement, right? There'll be a pre and a post, and we measure, growth. And then there'll be 50% of school-wide measures. So that can be a graduation rate, it can be attendance, it can be performance on state tests. People get a little nervous when, especially teachers,
Sure.
this is the structure. But what we've done, just to share a quick story, we've changed the focus. I said, look, if it's about student achievement, it's about improving performance. So we're going to help you with professional development to improve your teacher practice. And once you improve teacher practice, you become a better teacher, and so the students will benefit.
So you're supporting your teachers as much as you're supporting your students.
Exactly. You have to support the teachers because there must be some benefit to them in this whole process. And they shouldn't feel targeted. They say, oh man, this thing again is coming at us. So no. It's about helping you to perform well. And there are different rubrics around to measure that. We have the Charles model, right? It's called framework for teaching.
Okay.
And it really defines what good teaching should look like. Because if you were to ask, 5, 6 educators, how do you define good teaching? You will get
Right.
the same number of answers.
Right.
So this is a common rubric used by everybody in our district, and it's done, many districts.
Let me ask, give you guys a chance too. How do you define a good teacher and how do you find them?
Well, that's a very good question. How do you find them? And to a certain, when you're teaching very young children, there has to be something within that person that you just know. And I hate to be nebulous about this, but that you think when you meet them, when you talk to them, when they answer questions, when they talk about curriculum, all right, this candidate is a very good candidate for one of our classrooms. And then they're given a certain amount of time. And if they are not doing what we expect them, then that, during that period of time, then we seek somebody else.
So they either make it or they're out.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that first, in those first few, first few months, first 30 or 90 days. However, when we evaluate teachers, Head Start has wanted us and has trained us as administrators to look at children using a new tool called the classroom assessment system. And it was developed at the University of Virginia by a man by the name of Robert C. Pianta. And this looks at teachers and their interactions with children, because the kind of interaction a teacher has with a child is directly related to how well that child does. It's the interaction. That it doesn't look at the curriculum, it doesn't look at the skills, it looks at the interaction. How does this teacher use language? How does this teacher ask questions? How does this teacher organize the day? How does this teacher transition children from one activity to another? And most important, how does this teacher relate to a child on an emotional level? What is the positive climate in the classroom? Is there a negative climate in the classroom? How sensitive is the teacher to the children, to the children's ideas? And teachers who do well, looking at that, looking at the teachers through that lens, children will do very, very well. And we're not looking at, yeah.
You said we're not looking at them.
That particular tool does not look at the, what the child accomplishes, essentially. We use other tools for that. But when a teacher does well using that particular assessment system, the children do well.
So since you're working so extensively with parents as well, do you think which is more important, the way the teacher interacts with the child or the home environment with the
You
parents?
have to have all of it. But do I think it's more important? I think because I work in the school system, I value that tremendously. However, we have to be able to, one of our functions and one of our goals is to work with parents to make them understand their own interactions with their child. I mean, that's one of our goals. And so when we look at children and what they achieve, we are very pleased. We use the same assessment system that all of the schools in Newark use that have any affiliation with the Newark Public Schools. And we use the same commercial assessment system. And we do very well. And we also look at the data to see where we're not doing well. And when we're not doing well, and we also know the teachers that are not doing well in this one little area, and there's small areas such as certain kinds of phonological awareness. Maybe there's this particular area of phonological awareness is not going well, but the other areas are great. So who are the teachers who are not doing that well, then those teachers get the training. So
A lot of support in individuals.
and so we have a lot of supports for teachers, and they get all kinds of training. They get individual training. They get a small group, just like children.
Yeah.
Individual, small group, and whole class.
And Ed, I think you wanted to.
The word engagement is very critical. In terms of a first grade teacher, a senior in high school teacher, somebody in college has to have the ability to engage the student. That's the best way to accomplish successful learning outcomes. In terms of what we look for in professors that we hire, we certainly look for academic credentials, a terminal degree. We also look for folks who have a lot of experience. Dr. Scaralli was up here earlier. He ran a family business at one point and now is active in the classroom and has a terminal degree. In my case, I started my professional life as a CPA, was in the media business for a long time, had the privilege of teaching in Russia, in China, here in the United States. And that gives us the ability to translate the theory into real life circumstances, and also to engage the students in relating the theory to what they really want to do in their life.
Well, the more a teacher brings to the classroom,
Yes.
is what you're saying. Obviously, that the experience translates it. It may not be direct even classroom experience, but just the more life experience you have, perhaps.
Absolutely. Experience in the world of business, for example, or we have judges that teach at the college, in our justice area, lawyers, people who not just sit there and tell stories about what they've done. That's not the point. But the ability to take the curriculum and translate it into something that these students can use practically when they get out in their full-time job or they have to go on their internship.
It's
as well.
essentially practicum.
Yes, absolutely.
So, we're almost out of time, which it goes so quickly when you're up here. Let me ask each one of you, one of the questions we've asked throughout these series is if you kind of had a magic wand and you could say, if I just had this one thing, my job would be so much easier, we'd have a much better experience with our kids, it would be so much more beneficial to the whole educational process that I'm involved in. What would that one thing be? Bickram?
Well, in my case, I like to have a more efficient management database and give me quick turnaround of data. That's really acceptable to me and the teachers and the students.
Because so much of what
Because I do it takes hours to really pin down student by student and crunch that data. But it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
But if there's an efficient way to do this, I like to have that.
Okay. Big Ed?
What I've seen today is what we need more of. And in speaking to my fellow panelists, what I sense is passion and sensitivity. That's what we need in the classroom. That kind of commitment, that kind of passion, and many of the folks who who are at the college that I'm with have that kind of passion. And I'm pleased that that's the case.
Joann, give you the last word.
Well, I think we as a society have to be very careful about the kinds of facilities that are used for early childhood. And while, because I also previously, not with this particular job I have now, but I had been around to a lot of child care centers. And I see facilities for child care centers that, while they meet licensing regulations, are not optimal. And for instance, not enough windows. Playgrounds that children have to go to a public park, to a playground, which is fine to go to a public park, but it's much better to have it right there. And so we have to make a commitment to our youngest children so that the environment, the Italians have a wonderful phrase, and they say, the room is the third teacher, because there are 2 teachers in preschool. The room is the third teacher. I like to say it's the whole environment that's the third teacher. And that includes the outdoor environment, that includes the walls and the ceilings. And so I would, my ideal would be early childhood centers that are specifically made for early childhood.
Well, I think it's been really inspiring and really fascinating to hear about, and I think you said it, the passion, the sensitivity that all of you certainly bring to your jobs. And you all have very fortunate students. Let me say that. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Okay.